Hello, everybody. I'm Mr. Homer.
And I'm Mr. Young.
We hope you're enjoying your unexpected vacation. Welcome to our new assembly. This one is about famous scientists.
So, we have to figure out first, what is science exactly? Would you like to know?
First of all, science is the knowledge you learn from studying the world and everything in it.
Secondly, science is the knowledge that we learn from doing experiments. And what exactly is an experiment, you ask? Well, that's a great question. An experiment is a test that you do to try to prove some great idea that you have about the world. And so doing an experiment can help you figure out the knowledge of science.
Finally, science is the knowledge you learn from observation. What is observation, I hear you say? Well, observation is when you watch something very closely.
And so, in conclusion, science is the knowledge that we get from study, experiment, and observation.
What is the purpose of science? Well, we use science to make our lives easier.
All right, check this one out. Can you tell me what has science done for you?
How has science helped us? Well, these things are all created thanks to science. We have medicine, stationery like pencils, the light bulb, and technology like computers and cell phones, and much, much more. So, Mr. Young, can you tell us who studies science?
Well, yes, Mr. Homer, in fact, I can. Scientists are people who study science. Scientists study different things in our world. For example, they study the human body, animals, space, rocks, dinosaurs, and much, much more.
The first scientist we will look at is a man called Alexander Graham Bell. Can you say that?
Alexander Graham Bell.
Now, Alexander Graham Bell was an engineer. Everybody?
Engineer.
Alexander Graham Bell was famous for inventing the telephone, which he did in 1876. He first became interested in the science of sound because both his mother and his wife were deaf. That means they couldn't hear anything. Look how the telephones have changed from over 100 years ago to now. Alexander Graham Bell is famous for saying, before anything else, preparation is the key to success. This means that planning is very, very important when you do anything in life.
All right, students, our next scientist today is named Albert Einstein. Can you say Albert Einstein with me?
Albert Einstein.
Very good. So Albert Einstein was a famous physicist. Ooh, that's a tough word. Can you say physicist with me?
Physicist.
Very good. So, what is Einstein famous for? He's very famous for discovering the theory of relativity.
Relativity.
Yes, relativity. That basically means that the faster an object moves, the slower time appears to pass on that object. So, the faster you go, the slower time is. It's very interesting. You may have to learn more about that on your own. Now, Einstein is also famous at the same time for creating a very simple and beautiful equation called E equals mc squared. That means that energy is equal to the mass of that object times the speed of light squared. So energy is equal to how fast the object is moving through space. So his very famous quote for saying, "A person who never makes a mistake is a person who never tried anything new." So you should always try something new and not be afraid of failing or making a mistake, because even the most famous physicist in the world had mistakes himself.
Okay, the third scientist we're going to look at is Isaac Newton. Everybody?
Isaac Newton.
Now, Isaac Newton was a famous astronomer. Can you say astronomer?
Astronomer.
Well done. That is a difficult word. Now, Isaac Newton is famous for discovering the law of gravity. I remember gravity from the last assembly about space. Can we say gravity?
Gravity.
Now, one day, Isaac Newton was sat down on a bench and an apple fell down from an apple tree and hit him on the head. Now, he wondered why that happened. After a while, he worked out that it was the earth that was pulling the apple down, and he called this the law of gravity. Isaac Newton was famous for saying, "A man may imagine things that are false, but he can only understand things that are true." And maybe that's something we should think about every day.
All right, students. Our next famous scientist we're looking at today, his name was Stephen Hawking. Let's say Stephen Hawking together.
Stephen Hawking.
And Stephen Hawking was another famous physicist. Let's say physicist again together. Yeah, it's such a tough word. Even English speakers get it wrong. Okay, so Stephen Hawking helped to prove that space and time had a beginning. It was called the Big Bang. And scientists are still trying to figure out some parts of this, but he made a contribution himself when he discovered radiation around black holes. So Stephen Hawking not only was famous for studying black holes, but he was very famous for overcoming his physical disabilities. So he had an illness called ALS, and he only had a couple years to live, but the doctors were able to help stop the illness, and he lived for many, many years and made great discoveries and was an inspiration for millions of people around the world. And he had to use a computer to speak, and he typed on it with a pen in his mouth because his arms no longer worked. Very, very, very difficult life he led, but still used his mind to help make the world better. He had a very famous quote. He said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you just don't give up. So never give up."
Okay, the next scientist is a man called Thomas Edison. Everybody?
Thomas Edison.
And Thomas Edison was a very famous inventor. Can you say inventor?
Inventor.
Thomas was famous for his invention of the light bulb in 1879. Wow, that's over 100 years ago he invented the light bulb, and we still use that today. That's amazing. Now, Thomas wanted to invent a light that didn't need oil or gas to shine, because back in those days, you used candles or you used a light that used oil or gas to power the light to shine. So he created a light bulb using electricity, and this light bulb would stay lit for up to 13 and a half hours. That's amazing. Now, Thomas was very famous for saying, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That means Thomas was not afraid of making a mistake, or 10,000. He kept on trying and trying and trying until he got it right, which is an inspiration to us all. Thank you, Thomas.
Okay, students, our next famous scientist we're looking at today is named Marie Curie. Can you say that with me?
Marie Curie.
Very good. And she also was a famous physicist. Let's say it one more time. Ah, very good. I think we're getting good at that now. So Marie Curie lived in France over 100 years ago, and she studied radiation. Do you remember that from our last one about space? Radiation. Let's say that. And we use radiation inside X-ray machines. So she helped to make the X-ray machine better and more efficient so it could study your bones. Now, X-ray machines are used for taking pictures of bones and tissues inside of our body. These are very, very important for medical science, and she was a great physicist and inventor. Now, Marie Curie had a famous quote where she said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more, so that we may fear less." Now, this is a very wise saying. She's basically telling you that you should not be scared of the unknown and that you should do your best to understand the unknown, and so we may not live in fear. Well, students, that concludes our presentation on famous scientists of the world. I really hope you learned something and have a splendid day.
Thank you very, very much, and see you soon.